Welcome back to Morning Joe. It's Thursday, February 5th. Jonathan Lemire is still with us, and joining the conversation we have, MS Now contributor Mike Barnicle is with us, and we've got a lot to get to. We're going to get back to more of what the president told Tom Yamas in his interview yesterday. Also, Chuck Schumer, Minority Leader, will be joining us at the top of the next hour.
And and he's going to be talking about, obviously, the Democrats during the last government shutdown had a fight over health care. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, after that health care battle was sort of resolved for the moment, a lot of Democrats were very critical of the deal, but the deal ended up actually, at least politically, upping the Democrats a lot. They did extraordinarily well in elections that were held a week or two later. And we all thought that this government shutdown was going to be about health care, but ICE has so superseded everything. The killings in Minneapolis, the overreach, the fact that they're not getting the worst of the worst, but only 7%. So we're now having Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. They're going. Chuck Schumer's going to come and tell us what conditions they're going to have for keeping funding going to ICE, and we'll see if what the Republicans do.
All right, but our top story this hour again continues to be Today's Show co-host Savannah Guthrie, and also her siblings are now publicly pleading for the safe return of their missing mother. In a raw and heart-wrenching video posted on social media last night, the family makes a direct appeal to any possible abductor of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, who was last seen at her home near Tucson on Saturday night in what police believe may have been a kidnapping. Here is the family's plea in full.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She's funny, spunky, and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses. She loves fun and adventure. She is a devoted friend. She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see.
The light is missing from our lives. Nancy is our mother. We are her children. She is our beacon. She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances. She chooses joy day after day. Despite having already passed through great trials of pain and grief, we are always going to be merely human. Just normal human people who need our mom. Mama, if you're listening, we need you to come home. We miss you.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us. Mommy, if you are hearing this, You are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again. We speak to you every moment, and we pray without ceasing, and we rejoice in advance for the day that we hold you in our arms again. We love you, Mom.
Love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you, Mom. We love you.
Our dear friend Savannah Guthrie there, speaking with eloquence and strength through that unthinkable pain, flanked by her sister Annie and her brother Cameron. Let's bring to this conversation former FBI Special Agent Catherine Schweit. In her 2 decades at the agency, she worked on missing persons cases with some similarity to Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, Catherine. To your trained ear, what do you see and hear in that video?
A lot of requests to the abductor, the kidnappers, depending on who we're dealing with, humanizing the mother and saying, you know, they're basically saying, you have a mother, we have a mother, we all have mothers, and mothers are very important to us. Please look out and talk to this person. She mentioned, talk to her, ask her. And they're looking for a way to connect with the abductor to say, or the kidnappers to say, please listen, you have a human being with you. We don't care about the money. We want her back.
And you're pointing out to us that in cases you've worked, missing persons cases, it can be many, many days before the person is returned, and they have been recovered in many cases alive. And so we want to keep that out there for people to keep their hope and prayers coming. I'm curious, I know you're not working on this case, but you have such vast experience in this area. Just from what you know publicly or talking to your friends at the FBI, what you make of the lack of leads, frankly, that we've seen so far, coming up on 5 days now.
Yeah, I think that 5 days sounds frustrating, and I appreciate that. And I do remember, listening as our SWAT team, recovered an 88-year-old woman alive after a kidnapping up in Wisconsin just about 23 years ago to this very week. So I'm hopeful. I want the family to remain hopeful. But I think the other thing that maybe the public should be aware of is that the last thing that law enforcement is going to do is share any of the details, because they can't afford to. They can't afford to telegraph to potential abductors or kidnappers what they do or don't know, who they're looking for. Are they looking for one person or two? Have they found surveillance tape, or have they seen vehicles? I recall one case where we, in the old days, and we track phoned a person we were able to identify a kidnapper initially because of a track phone and then a photograph in the old version of how you did computers in an internet cafe. So you can't tell the public that, because you run the risk of the kidnapper panicking and doing something to the victim. We don't want that to happen. We want the kidnapper instead to stay calm and realize that the money is not important to the family. They are willing to pay to get the person back at this point.
So, Catherine, as the clock ticks on the disappearance of an 84-year-old woman with some health issues, you mentioned in the old days, you would do this or do that. Yeah. But today, the role of technology, could you speak to the possibility that the role of technology could help crack this case?
Absolutely, it can, and I think that that's something where the public can help. Somebody who does this kind of act it's not random. So it was planned. It was a planned violent act, and so that means that there's probably was surveillance done, possibly weeks or months ahead of time, and not just on the block and the 2 or 3 houses around where she lived, but in the neighborhoods beyond, where somebody surveils the neighborhood and then parks their car in front of somebody else's house to eat lunch that they picked up at the local restaurant or a fast food place. And the law enforcement, I'm sure, is looking through all the surveillance tapes that they can have. And we can do that in so much faster way now. License plate readers, for instance, why is there a license plate coming from another state that has driven through the neighborhood 3 times? That's very suspicious, right? So you check on it, and you have the ability through technology to do that, not just with license plates, but with phones and cameras, and then also to do the analysis quickly. The FBI laboratory is an astonishing team of people who can, I remember during the Boston bombing, I think 170 or something different pieces of video footage were packaged together very quickly within days so that we could follow the trail of the Boston bombers into the parade route and then away from the parade route. And it was really just a lot of gumshoe, tough work that can be done now digitally.
Former FBI Special Agent Catherine Schweit, thank you very much for your insights this morning as we follow this. And of course, we'll bring you any developments as they become available. Still ahead on Morning Joe, our next guest says billionaire Jeff Bezos and Washington Post publishers Will Lewis are taking steps to kill everything that makes the Washington Post special. The Atlantic's Ashley Parker joins us for more on that. Plus, the latest from Minneapolis after border czar Tom Homan said there would be a drawdown of federal agents in the state, and what city leaders are saying about Operation Metro Surge.
The only interactions that me or my colleagues on city council have had with Gregory Bovino is when he threw a gas grenade at one of my colleagues.
And a reminder, you can subscribe to our newsletter, The Tea, spilled by Morning Joe. Scan the QR code on your screen. It'll get right to your inbox. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
I was there when a Russian missile hit a Ukrainian playground and killed 9 kids.
I was there on a fishing boat in the middle of the South China Sea when Chinese Coast Guard ships showed up to assert their claim over contested territory.
I was there when the Taliban tightened their grip on Afghanistan.
I was there in January 2020 outside of Wuhan when China shut it down to contain a mysterious virus.
I'm in Kfar Aza, one of the frontline villages that was just cleared of Hamas fighters last night.
International reporters are your eyes and ears around the world.
Washington needs us.
The world needs us.
Jeff, please save us. Save the Post.
That was part of a video posted on social media last week by the Ukraine bureau chief for the Washington Post, Siobhan O'Grady, begging billionaire Jeff Bezos not to cut the paper's foreign department. Those layoffs were among hundreds announced across several departments yesterday in a move affecting nearly 1/3 of the iconic paper's staff, including some journalists still actively in the field. Reporter Lizzie Johnson wrote on X that she was laid off while still in Ukraine covering the war. I can't. I mean, come on.
It really is remarkable. I'll tell you what else is remarkable, just the heartlessness, the cruelty.
It's unnecessary. He's a billionaire.
Well,
it's unnecessary.
I'm
it doesn't
talking
have
about
to
the
happen.
stupidity that I saw yesterday by people on the MAGA right going, well, they deserved it, their work. Now, seriously? Now, what happened was Jeff Bezos lurched, running desperately in the arms of Donald Trump after Donald Trump got elected. And he decided they were going to change. First of all, they were going to get rid of an editorial endorsing Kamala Harris at the last second, and then try to change their ideological viewpoint. Now, I mean, people can say, well, you're only appealing to 40% of the country that might be center left. Now, probably more like 45, now probably more like 50% of the country that's deeply disturbed by what's going on the right. But as Gerard Baker said yesterday, 40% of the country, that's over 120, 130 million people. That's a pretty good audience to have. This was not brought on by the great reporters in the field that we just saw. This was brought on by fear. by fear from Jeff Bezos, by desperation, that somehow his main interest, which, by the way, journalism, not in the top 30 for him, but his main interest actually might be damaged because of what the Washington Post dared to write, dared to report, when they dared to tell. So all of this garbage about it's their own fault, the stupidity and the cruelty is crazy. This was a paper that was doing extraordinarily well just a few years ago before Jeff Bezos got scared. Under the leadership of Fred Ryan for a long time and Marty Barron, our next guest can tell us how successful that paper was, not only financially, but also the remarkable number of awards that they brought in for their extraordinary reporting. Let's bring in right now political analyst, staff writer at the Atlantic, Ashley Parker. Her new piece is bluntly titled "The Murder of the Washington Post." Ashley, feel free, take it, go. Well, I mean, this is something. When I was in Washington, I told Bill Maher on last week that I always felt like I was getting away with something when I got to see Johnny Carson every night. When I moved to Washington, D.C., and I could I could just go to a newsstand and get the Washington Post every morning. I'm like, how lucky can somebody be? It's a great paper. It was a great paper up until about a year and a half ago. Talk about what happened.
I mean, I would argue first it still is a great paper, and they are absolutely gutting it for no reason. But look, it seems very clear that Jeff Bezos wants to curry favor with Donald Trump. And, that is his right to do so on the editorial side. It wasn't good business. It lost a lot of subscribers, but that is his right. But the irony is, if he has been reading any of his own paper's coverage of Donald Trump going back to the first term, he should understand that this is a fool's mission. Trump will never be satisfied. If the day that he is hoping to get the Blue Origin contract from NASA, there's they say they're doubling down on politics. There's a political story that Donald Trump doesn't like. He will still be punished. So this is all for nothing. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as an owner, Jeff Bezos deserves a competent publisher. And if his goal is to run the Post into the ground, Will Lewis isn't even equipped to do that. So he's being ill-served by his current publisher, regardless of what his mission or his goal is. But what I really wanted to capture in my piece is not just, as I write at the beginning, that we're witnessing a murder, but what makes the Post so special and what is really being lost. And this has been the Post before I got there, and this will be the Post since I've left. And even with all of these changes, is sort of the pulsing humanity that is at the core of that publication, and the teamwork and the collaboration and the collegiality, and what the Post was able to do, which most major newspapers have struggled, is to sort of keep that scrappy underdog sense of fun, sense of camaraderie, sense of we really love each other and our family that you have at a local paper, while operating on a national scale among the best of the best. And that's what's being lost.
So I've never met Will Lewis, but I will tell you, I've yet to hear one good thing said about him from news people on both sides of the Atlantic, whether I'm talking to people in Washington, in New York, or in London. They all say the same thing. He is ill-equipped to run the Washington Post. From reading the coverage, again, not knowing him at all, that seems to be a common thread, that once he took over, the paper was directionless, had no mission other than to sort of stay in this crouching position and fire people.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the years under his tenure, which is about 2 now, he had a lot of turgid corporate speak. No real ideas. Even the ideas he claimed to try to launch, not only were they not launched, but they were never even successfully attempted to launch. He has a reputation for barely showing up to work, showing up late when he does. The one thing that became clear, his sense of what sufficed as a business plan was contempt for a talented and hardworking newsroom. And that's why you saw a lot of people leaving the Post, even under his reign, because a lot of people didn't want to work for someone who didn't have a business plan, couldn't articulate a vision, didn't seem to have much courage, but in lieu of that, seemed to absolutely disdain the reporters. That's not a successful business model.
And it tells you everything about his leadership, that he was not the one who communicated directly these layoffs yesterday, despite the fact he's the publisher of the newspaper. He put that on someone else. So, Ashley, when Jeff Bezos buys the Washington Post in August of 2013, there is a lot of hope, some skepticism and questions about what his agenda was, but also if the richest guy in the world wants to come and save the Washington Post and perhaps save journalism, well, that's a good thing. So what happened from there over these dozen or so years since?
So again, it's interesting. I was actually not at the Post when Bezos bought it originally, but I was a beneficiary of his ownership. He gave the Post sort of the money and the backing to match our ambition. And for many years, in my view, he was a fantastic owner. He didn't meddle in the news side at all. I covered Trump in his first term for the Washington Post. I remember Amazon and Bezos lost some government contracts. We were called the Amazon Washington Post. Trump was very putative, wanted to punish him, and Jeff Bezos never blinked. So the Bezos we're seeing now feels like a very different version than the one I sort of came to respect as the owner when I joined. I'm not exactly sure what happened. He doesn't talk to me a ton in person. He comes to the newsroom sometimes when we won Pulitzers and stuff like that. But he was a spectral presence, which frankly is what an owner should be. But my best guess as to what happened is Trump won a second term, and you saw at the inauguration a lot of these tech bros and oligarchs decided that the first term wasn't a fever dream, that this guy was here to stay, and that if they cared about their business interests, they were willing to abandon their principles, or what they had claimed at least were their principles.
Ashley, this is like talking about a death in the family, what's happened to the Washington Post. But could you talk about your memories, your recollections, and they're quite recent, I would imagine. Well, I know they are quite recent, about the pulse of a newsroom and its reflection of the city that it represents and the city that it writes about. Not just the big international or national stories, but about the pulse of D.C. itself and its relationship to journalism and covering a city and covering the news that happens every day that people depend on getting from their paper, the Washington Post.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to start by talking in really personal terms, which is I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland. I was raised on the Washington Post. We recently found my younger sister's baby book. She's a second child, so most of the pages were blank, but the ones that were filled in, my dad had literally written news of the day from the Washington Post. When she was born, my dad taught me how to follow football, the then Redskins. I was lucky. I was 10. We started watching in 1992. Unfortunately, the last year they won the Super Bowl. The Post was where I read about quarterback Mark Rippon, whose jersey I still have, and Joe Gibbs, and cut out pictures to put on my walls. The Post was where, when there was a drunk driving accident, I was in middle school then, devastating for girls at the high school I was going to go to. The Post was where I went to make sense of what had happened, to understand. Some of those articles, frankly, are the reason that among the many, many bad decisions my friends and I made, we never drove drunk. And the Post was why I wanted to become a journalist. It's why so many people wanted to become a journalist. For a lot of people, it was Woodward and Bernstein. For me, I'll just say it was the style section. That was what I turned to first. I mean, the Post style section competed with the new journalism magazine era of the greats. I can list off the names now of all of these people I loved, I read, I pored over the stories trying to understand how did they do it? How did they land that sparkling flourish? How did they leave me in tears or in laughter by the end? So this is a paper that is like imbued in the fabric of the city. And you also can't disentangle, I know you said, take it away from the national, the global stories. But a city like Washington, the local stories also are the national stories. September 11th, when the plane crashed into Pentagon, that was a local story. It was a national story. The decisions made here in Washington, in this city, led to the global war on terror. There's no other paper like that.
And let's talk a little bit more, Ashley, about, and I have been in big city newsrooms. I know what that is like. Let's talk about a little more about what has been lost. We should also note, speaking of Jeff Bezos, the reporter who covered Amazon got laid off yesterday. Yeah. The books section gone, culture section gone. You started to mention sports section. The Washington Post legendary sports section. Sal Jenkins, Mike Wilbon, Tony Kornheiser, the list goes on and on. Yesterday, the Washington Wizards, this city's NBA team, made a huge trade. Washington Post didn't have anyone to cover it because they don't have a sports section. And I think it is an international paper, it's a national paper, but it's also people who live here and talk to us just about what it's like to have such an institution hollowed out.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. Washington is a huge sports town. The idea that you would lay off almost your entire sports section, I mean, it's a disservice to the community. It also makes no business sense. But to give you a sense of what is lost, again, I mean, for me, it's just so personal, so I'm going to talk about it in personal terms. I was on the Metro yesterday. As the news, we knew this was coming, but as the names of the actual people laid off, some of my closest friends and some people I'd never even spoken to, but who I respected from afar for how hardworking they are, I started tearing up. I mean, actually, I kind of started weeping. So I'm on the Metro. I'm crying. I'm wearing my Washington Post winter hat, which I always wear. It's just my winter hat. And a woman, a total stranger, just leaned over and gave me a hug because it wasn't just a loss for me. It wasn't just a loss for all of those talented, hardworking journalists who lost their jobs. It's a loss for the city. She's someone who tries to understand why hasn't the snow been plowed? Why are there still huge piles of snow just outside? That's what people read the Post for. Who are our teams trading? What is the restaurant where it's not worth spending your money on a date night? And what is the hole-in-the-wall Korean place where you can get the best bibimbap? That is the role the Post serves for the community. And all of that is just being torn away for no reason.
Staff writer for The Atlantic, Ashley Parker. We're so grateful for you coming here today and talking about a newspaper, an institution that was such an important part of your life. And let's hope that a new owner one day comes in and revives this great institution. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley's new piece is available to read online right now.
Mike Barnicle, it's very easy for people to cynically say, well, the era of great newspapers is gone. The era where the Barnacles, the Roykos, the Wilbon, I mean, all these great writers, reporters, very easy to say that era is gone. But you look at some people who are still doing it right. A.G. Sulzberger at the New York Times, Joe Kahn, and a lot of our friends at the Times, they're still doing a hell of a job. At Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal, a lot
Fantastic
of people
paper.
raised the white flag, saying Murdoch's going to destroy the Wall Street Journal. When Emma Tucker came in, like she came in and shook things up, and there was, a sort of a semi-rebellion in there. I will tell you, and I don't know that Emma Tucker even knows who Nick Saban is, so I don't know that. But I could tell the second Nick Saban went to Alabama, the culture's changed. I will tell you, when Emma Tucker took over the Wall Street Journal, even with the alerts I got, I didn't even know she was there. And I just said, wait, what's happening with the Wall Street Journal? What's going on?
The Wall Street Journal.
I hate Mika will tell you, I hate notifications. I don't open them up. She made me open them up, and that paper is better than ever. And she knows who Nick Saban is. Same thing with The Atlantic. Laureen Powell-Jobs is doing an extraordinary job there. They're making money. The Wall Street Journal's making money. The Economist is making money. The Financial Times is making money. The New York Times doing better than ever. You can still do this if you do it right. Right, Mike?
Well, all those papers in The Atlantic, the magazines, they're doing it right. They're doing it as a role model for other papers that are struggling. Listen, one of the problems in this country, I would submit, is the death of so many local newspapers where people would get their news about what's happening in their state or their small town or their city that they live in. And there are a few papers still doing the job. The Wall Street Journal, you just mentioned, is a terrific paper. I sat next to Emma Tucker at a dinner a couple of weeks ago, and just listening to her, you can tell why it's a great paper. Her leadership. It's leadership. The Times is spectacular. My old paper, the Boston Globe, is doing very well. It's doing very well under the ownership of John W. Henry. His wife, Linda, helps run the paper. She does run the paper. They have a brand new editor, the old editor, Brian McGrory, that they brought back in. And it's a dominant newspaper. And it can happen. And it's important for the culture around the paper, around the cities that it covers. But the death of the small papers in this country are part of the slow diminution of people's appreciation of government, of democracy, and we need more healthy newspapers. So everything that you mentioned, especially the big three, the Washington Post, still there, still fighting. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, still getting the job done. The Atlantic magazine, a spectacular magazine on a daily basis online. They're all doing great jobs, so there's still hope. There's still hope.
There really is. I will say also, just underlining very quickly, the collapse of local newspapers is devastating for good government. I can tell you, when I was in Congress, I didn't care what the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or Washington Post had to say about me, but when the person that covered Gannett for Northwest Florida came around, I was worried because, you know, that's the paper that your mom and dad read. That's the paper that your kids read. That's the paper that your constituents read. And local papers, time and time again. When I was up there, I think there were 7 or 8 local bureaus, Washington bureaus out of Florida from newspapers. Now there probably is not one. Maybe the Miami Herald or St. Petersburg Times, but that's not only bad for newspapers, that's bad for American democracy and accountability.
All right, coming up, following the drawdown in Minnesota announced by the Trump administration, state officials now are detailing their interactions with federal immigration agents on the ground there. We'll show you what they told MS Now next on Morning Joe.
Mr. President, speaking of Minneapolis, what did you learn?
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals. But look, I've called the people. I've called the governor. I've called the mayor, spoke to them, had great conversations with them, and then I see them ranting and raving out there, literally as though a call wasn't made. We've done a great job everywhere.
It sounds like there is a shift in immigration enforcement here, that there's going to be a shift after Minneapolis. What should Americans expect going forward?
Well, one thing I say to my people, you know, we do a good job, we don't get credit for it. I say they have to ask and they have to say please. When a city is going
to ask and who has
the
to say
mayor
please?
or the governor, I don't want to go and force ourselves into a city, even if their numbers are terrible.
President Trump speaking to NBC's Tom Yamas about immigration enforcement efforts. Meanwhile, we're learning more about the ICE operation in Minnesota.
Yeah, grind mode on, can't kill my drive. Turn the pressure up, I come alive. Grind mode on, I don't fold, I don't quit. Hunger in my chest, every beat I commit. Eyes on the prize, no sleep till it's won. World in my hands when the grind mode's on. Wake up with a vision, I'm locked on the target. Turn pain into fuel, I'm a flame, I spark it. No shortcuts here, I embrace every test. Pressure on my shoulders, still I handle it best. I was made for the climb, every loss, every scar. Built me in the steel, now I shine like a star. If the road gets rough, I just double my speed. Ambition on 10, I was born to lead. Grind mode on, I don't fold, I don't quit. Hunger in my chest, every beat I commit. Eyes on the prize, no sleep till it's won. World in my hands when the grind mode's on. said limits exist, but I shattered the frame. Every wall in my path is just fuel for the frame. Discipline heavy, but my spirit is free. I don't chase success, success chases me. I'm the storm and the calm, I'm the rise, I'm the proof. Every bar that I drop is the grind in the booth. Blood, sweat, tears, that's the code I trust. I don't wait for the crown, I earn it, I must.